forestry divides our nation and divides our communities. Just Keganga Hinudikyan. My name is Sonia Rice, and I used to work for the CHN for about 16 years, and currently for the last 6, I'm working for the Haida Enterprise Corporation, the economic development arm of the Haida Nation, and my title is Senior Executive Assistant.
My name is Kun Koyangus Marlene Little. I am the Stewardship Director of Lands for the Council of the Haida Nation. And I have a seat at the solutions table and am acting protected areas manager. The story is, started long before Sonia and I ever got involved in it. I think because we're mothers, we're daughters, we're a little bit more in tune with what's happening around us and how it affects people around us. Is the reason why we do what we do and why we're so passionate about it. I call it playing the game. Somebody else has set the rules and we've been going along with that all this time and trying to meet their rules through the colonial systems that are set up. And now we have UNDRIP, and now we have our title case, and now we have Gaigalta, and all of that is changing where the feds and the province and the Changing Tide Framework Agreement have actually said the Haida Nation is a government. So we're playing on an equal field with rules that we're making up together as we're going along. So we're heavily involved in it, and it's the best the nation has done in a long time, and leading by example again for the other nations on the coast of BC.
You'll notice too as you're driving around, everybody waves.
That's so nice.
Like, hey, I don't know who you are, but thanks for waving. Basically, we're looking at areas that were logged during the war efforts and pre-Forest Practices Code days where logging happened right up to the streams. And now we're trying to reestablish those streamside stands as old growth stands for the protection of the riparian areas and for enhancement of wildlife habitat. First stop. I like stopping here to begin with, just to have a look at what old growth looks like on Haida Gwaii. We're on the estuary of the Yaqoon River. Very, very rich ecosystem, sitka spruce dominated. I think if you counted the stems, we're probably down around 300 to 350 stems per hectare. We have very, very tall, 60, 65 meter tall trees. And then you have different levels in the canopy. You have very, very large branching systems, very, very large rooting systems. They're holding on to the stream banks. They're creating habitat for wildlife. And then you have different structures as you come through. So you have different heights of trees. We've got trees that are dying. We've got nesting habitat cavities, all that stuff here. And then our shrub layer. This is our overall objective. This is where we want to get with all of our riparian areas. So we're further upstream than we were just recently. This stand would have been planted when it was harvested. Harvesting would have occurred right up to the river. That was a logging practice back then. The stand density in here probably was around 6,000 to 8,000 stems per hectare. It was spaced probably in the early to mid 80s. And now we're looking at a stand density of roughly 1,800 stems per hectare. The stand is still what we considered an overdense conifer stand. So if you look up at the canopy, we're starting to see some natural mortality happening as the stand is self-thinning. We're trying to expedite that process. So our crews will be coming in here now, and we'll reduce this stand down to about 650 stems per hectare now. They will accomplish that by girdling the trees. They're not going to be falling the trees. They're just going to girdle them to kill the trees. It takes about 2 years to kill the tree altogether. They'll be putting in slash marks and trying different ways of stressing trees out to produce cone crops to attract squirrels and other songbirds. Attracting the squirrels and songbirds, our hopes are it will attract the raptors. And then as our stand starts to expand and some of these trees start getting larger and have greater canopy growth, we're hoping then we'll start getting nesting structure for raptors and marbled murrelet.
I firmly believe these trees, give them like 20 years, this is going to be a totally different forest. You won't even recognize that these trees are going to take off now.
That's probably true.
And I feel like there's a lot of negative press out there on logging standards and everything. And I don't know, I feel like out here it's not the hardest in the world. It's pretty darn close for them to log. And I think they do a pretty good job of it now compared to when I first showed up 20 years ago.
We're on the Mammon River, and the reason why we're doing a lot of this restoration work is to start stabilizing the stream bank. So the Mammon River up to this point was logged right up to the stream edge and probably even through the stream. On the opposite side of the river, you can see probably what's happened on this side where we have all of the alder. There may have even been gravel taken from the stream bed at one time. The stream may have even been over there and used for road systems. So you can see all of the large stumps are gone. Large trees are gone, so we should be seeing very large Sitka spruce and very large cedar trees here that we don't have. And we can see the banks are starting to cave away as old rooting systems start to rot away. The trees that are here now just haven't had a chance to get big enough to stabilize the streams. That one spruce tree there is holding on and holding the stream. The smaller structures that have fallen in the river are now deflecting water from the bank, but they're not the very, very large course-ready debris that would have been here if it hadn't been logged. So we're trying to establish that larger rooting system close to the stream bank and throughout the riparian zone to help stabilize the bank. And that was kind of the first objective. And then we're seeing a lot of spin-off objectives from that and benefits of this program for wildlife as well as restoration of the ecosystem, moving it back into its old growth state. We are in Tau 2, which is a cup block we harvested about 5 years ago. What we want to show in this cup block is what we've harvested in here. It's a second growth stand. Everything that's around the block right now is going to be retained to become old growth. It's never going to be harvested. So it's here for indefinitely. And what we have is a sawwood owl reserve on one side, a fairly large one. We have a type 1 fish stream where we have lots of pinks congregate in the fall. We have CMT reserves around the block as well. Monumentals on another side, which are cedar trees greater than 100 centimeters in diameter used by the Haida Nation. And then on another section of the block, we have culturally modified trees and old canoes that were found. So we have a significant amount of retention and reserve all the way around the block. And the idea is that we're trying to create connectivity between ecosystems and have corridors, which the land use order is creating just almost by default. And all this system connects right up to Jaskatla Inlet. They'll connect up to the river systems. And that's the idea, is that, even though it's second growth right now, this will become old growth and it become back to the natural ecosystems that it was.
This would be an example of a abandoned Haida canoe that they felled. I've got quite a bit, as you can see. They've got the bow shaped out, they've got it coming up, they even got the nose. The chop marks, they're starting to fade now, but they're still prevalent there, and you can see all the shape. They've even flattened it off. Whether what happened, whether it was smallpox or whatever came at the time and they ended up abandoning it, no sure for by that, but it looks like that might be the stump right there. So it's a bit of CSI in the woods.
So we are going out to 3 Mile Creek here on Haida Gwaii and watching a crew remove protectors from our planted cedar trees. We're protecting the trees from our deer here, which are quite the problem. I think it was estimated there's about 250,000 deer on Haida Gwaii, and as a result, there's no understory. So they're eating all the understory, and it poses a problem for planting trees because they seem to really love our cedar trees. So now this is 3 or 4 years after they were planted, and now it's time to remove them. So if we don't remove them, of course, we're going to be leaving a lot of garbage behind. There's about 12,000 protectors in this block. So the reason why we're able to grow cedars on this island is because we plant them.
There's room for the whole family.
You're thinking down.
That side or right here?
We're thinking right here.
Right here. It's gonna be nice. Yeah, I approve.
Good.
So females can only give birth inside dens. It's the only possible place. Their babies need to grow up for sort of 70 to 100 days in a den in order to be large enough and strong enough to survive outside the den and be able to climb trees for safety. And that is the importance of conserving these dens, is that we need these dens as basically nurseries in order to have sustainable black bear populations. I'm Helen Davis. I'm a bear biologist. I have my own consulting company, Artemis Wildlife Consultants, and I've been a consulting biologist for 30 years, working on bears as well as a lot of other creatures. But bear denning has been my passion for a long time. You know, now dens are protected in Haida Gwaii through the Haida Gwaii land use order, which is fantastic because it's only here and in the Great Bear Rainforest that is the case. But it's, you know, the 100 years of logging before this where they weren't protected that we need to look at. The land use order has provisions for recruitment of new dens, so allowing trees in places like this to grow large enough to become new dens. And doing this kind of thing is a sort of a short-term stopgap solution to fill the time period until we allow new trees to grow large enough to become dens. So you've got to find a stump with a big enough central cavity to make an appropriate sized chamber in it for a bear. It helps to find a stump that's big enough and that is already burned out on the inside to make a large enough area. They had to do quite a bit of saw work, you'll see from above, to make this large enough. And we're just going to cut an entrance in the side that they can access that and put a lid on top. Bears definitely find everything that we put out there for them, all the artificial bear dens and the stumps. I think the minimum was 5 visits by bears over the course of the study that I was doing, but we had as many as 51 visits to some of the structures by different bears. We have quite a few bear dens on Haida Gwaii that are in cedar trees with arboreal entrances, with above ground entrances, so they climb up the outside of the tree and there's a hole that goes into the inner hollow. And those are fantastic den sites for females who are giving birth to cubs because other bears can't, especially male bears, can't climb as well as females. And so it's a very safe, secure place for a female to give birth to cubs. That is beautiful. A work of art.
Great, awesome.
Good job.
Well, let's make the bed.
Yeah, there's lots of hair. And eyes. No, just kidding.
Island Spirit Rising was like a blockade on the north and the south of Graham Island that pretty much halted all logging until there was some interim agreement.
And it was by island people, not just Haida. So we all got together and said, we would like something different. And we did it together.
So the citizens were concerned about, are they going to have cedar for the future generations? Because the rate of cut was unsustainable. So you're looking at 20 years ago about 2.9 million cubic meters. And through our land use order objectives, we've lowered that to about 800,000 cubic meters. And a cubic meter is about the size of a telephone pole. Out of that agreement came the Kunstaya Reconciliation Protocol, which was signed in 2009. And then that was a joint agreement between the province of BC and the Council of Haida Nation. That agreement gave us the legal authority to set up the Haida Gwaii Management Council and the Solutions Table, which is a joint and shared decision-making to any application for development on Haida Gwaii. So for the first time, the Haida Nation had a say and could stop industry. And industry had said that they couldn't operate under such strict new rules. And here we are, 15 years later, they're still operating. So we've proven that you can protect stuff and you can
Provide an economy.
Provide an economy.
Haida citizens are driving where the nation wants to go, where they would like focus on, and I think that's really important because when we talk about the practicality of Stads coons being an endangered species, I think it's listed as an endangered species, yeah. But it's important to us. So it was so important we wanted to vote to make it a national bird. So someone brought a resolution forward, we all voted it, and it becomes the Haida Nation's resolution, right? CHN takes direction from the nation, and we at Taan, we at HGLUOO take direction from the nation. So we have that litmus test that whatever we're doing is what the nation want to see. It's not, oh, can we do this? It's, is this what you want us to do? So it's really a different way of thinking, and it's really important that that engagement happens at all levels. And we are trying to do more than harvest. We're investing in mentorship of our staff and with contractors, and providing opportunity to get into forestry and that mentorship. We're really trying at Taan and at HGLUOO to evolve from a traditional forest model.
We have written the cultural feature identification survey standards and do the examination and testing and certification of a surveyor. What that means is that we're the ones that are going out there, or somebody we have certified are going out there and doing this survey, and they're checking to make sure that the company is compliant with the land use order objectives. I think in the world we have the only CFI auditor on payroll. She does an amazing job. The importance of those culturally modified trees on the landscape is that they're like a living library to my generation. I can go out and look at a bark strip tree or a plank tree or an old canoe and figure out how they did what they did, which helps me in my harvesting today. So our Haida land use order objectives are the bare minimum requirement by the Haida Nation for industry to move forward, and it includes medicinal plants, spiritual areas, village sites, traditional trails, and then
Fish habitat?
fish habitat, marbled murrelet habitat, Stadskun or northern goshawk nesting sites and foraging habitat is in the works now. But those protections in the timber harvestable land base is about 48% of Haida Gwaii that is open for industry. And through the Haida Gwaii land use order objectives, once you apply that to the 48% of the timber harvestable land base, you only end up with about 20% of that land base is available to industry, because you have buffers around culturally modified trees, fish-bearing streams, cedar stands, forest reserves around monumentals, and even fairy slipper are protected.
So most licensees never meet their AAC, which is just fine by Haida people. I think that shows the foresight of the nation to say, well, this is what we want, and putting all the people in place in the legalities and working within a Western system, but starting with the Haida system first and having it come along to get where we're at today is absolutely key. And I'm grateful for Marlene to be here, because she is as the stewardship director of the Haida Nation, and she worked in and out of CHN for many years in different hats, and so did I. And I think we were blessed to be a small part of where we're at today. And I think it's the nation's story more than it's a Taan story, really. So I'm glad she was here. So Hoa.
Yeah.
We're grateful for the interview today.